Very good. Well, so what this time is about, and I'm going to just briefly introduce people poorly, but these are some amazing folks up here pioneering some things. Right here we have Matt Baldwin, and Matt is an entrepreneur in our city. Has had a real encounter with the Lord a few years back, and it's just the Lord has really taken over his business in a lot of ways and leading him. He runs a couple retail shops here that are very successful, as well as has his own clothing design business, and just looks snappy. And we had the four bearded angels singing yesterday, so this is definitely it was good. And real heart for reform, and really heart for the church to be transformed. So this is a wonderful guy, and has a lot to say. Bruce leads has a sports center. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what he had. Insurance company, landowner. And has started a house of prayer, a little very cool kind of a Reformation house of prayer in his city, and is very clued in with what's going on in North Carolina and this area of Concord, which is around near Charlotte. Chris Batts, and Chris is one of the leading headhunters in this field of headhunters. That's not an Amazon type person who actually heads. He's a recruiter who is one of the top recruiters in the law field and recruits lawyers, and is a major innovator, and very connected with the entrepreneurial community around Kansas City. And so our topic for our panelists, by the way, I just want to make sure they're all, everyone knows where we're headed. What we're really asking is how are you seeing the God of reform? How are you seeing the God of reform in your area, and what's going on? And so I'm going to just start with you down the road, so you can start thinking about that, Chris. So Bob and Michael and I are kind of our hosts here today, and then we have Marcia Huber, who's one of my favorite people on the planet. This lady is pioneering. She's a professor of accounting. She taught at universities, but she's a research scientist. She is basically getting governments to fund and foundations to fund her research on hope, on happiness. She's done research on, basically that giving makes us, benevolence makes us happier. People give are happier than people who don't. And she does all these studies and gets other people to fund them. And she's a real thought leader, a leader in studying really entrepreneurialism and innovation right now, and happiness. She's a scientist of happiness. David, come on up here, buddy. So this is David Lee, who was just waking up from his nap, and welcome. So, and Christian Selch. Christian, we have a long relationship with. We've probably known each other for 7-8 years now, and Christian is responsible for a whole big part of the state of Ohio. So, and he's the quartermaster, really. Runs a lot of the, you can tell what you do. I don't even, but you're basically responsible for all the problems in Ohio. But Christian, I just so appreciate this man. Is a real Daniel. He's a man of prayer, and he's a dreamer. He has dreams continually. Through every administration, the Lord has given him dreams, and really of what to expect and what to come in with the next administration. And so he's made a lot of trouble, made a lot of good, and is just an amazing guy. So all of you have seen the God of Reform, and so this is, did I forget about this? So this is our panelists, and like I said, Bob, Michael, and I are kind of our hosts for this session, and so we want to ask, really, how are you seeing the God of Reform? And just to get us launched, and we may have some time for some questions. So this is really open dialogue. These are major troublemakers in the earth, and as David would say, disruptors. I love that word. And so David, why don't you just get us started by telling us a couple stories? Tell us what's happening in Hollywood. Tell us some of the how you're seeing the God of reform in Hollywood, how you're seeing the God of reform in church. Tell us about the church that's going on out there with the incubator, and tell us just give us a story or two. What's happening?
Sure.
How long do you want us to go? Because if you get to March, you're done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah, just a couple minutes.
Quick,
Just
short ones. I know a lot of paradigms are being shifted. I know in Hollywood, this is a friend of mine. She's a writer, and she had this one script. The Lord downloaded the whole script to her. She's tongue speaking, charismatic, prophetic. I mean, everything. Very gifted writer too, and her film got picked up by a producer, and he's known. He's his lifestyle. He's part of the LGBT and community, and she got a call from him and said, "I would love to produce your film." And it was very difficult. Like, how do I do this? It was based on this, and he actually wanted to introduce a gay character to the film, and she's like, "No," but the Lord said, "You cannot say no." And she said, "Can I get back to you?" And she prayed about him. And the Lord said, "Go ahead and say yes," which completely shattered her paradigm. Called in and said, I want you to know I'm a Bible-believing Christian, born again," and was very honest with him, and he didn't say anything. And then the Lord interjected and said, "Tell him and say this," and tell him, say, "I trust you with the film." So she just said, "I believe the Lord speaks," and he just said this. And she said on the other side of the phone, it was just quiet. And what happened was he was just weeping. And so they are starting to do a film, and I don't know where they are in this phase, but there's been like this a mutual respect. And he's a big proponent of the LGBT, and through that relationship, for her paradigm to be completely shifted and to say yes, and then God speak, that was such it's so freeing for many of us. And so to me, that's a disruptive moment, especially for us. And when you go to Hollywood, those things happen a lot. And we say this, we're so known for the black and whites, but gray has become my favorite color. And that's something that Suzanne talks about. We just love grayness. And I think that's the disruption that we're seeing, is we don't know the black and whites, and we're starting to embrace the gray and say, let's figure out what the grays are.
And tell us about the church that you're going to.
We're a part of a church called New Song in Irvine, and they have a church plant in a rough part of Orange County in Santa Ana, gang-ridden, a lot of violence. And what they've done in the middle of the week, it's called a mix, and they've opened up the whole church, and they do taekwondo classes for kids, cooking classes for moms. They do this rumba dancing to, I don't know, they do everything just to the community. Community is not church services. And I think we started, I don't know how many months ago, but within like 2 or 3 weeks, it got packed out. Now it's hundreds coming from the community, very Hispanic families, and they're coming and just hanging out
to do rumba dancing or what?
Rumba. They put the kids in taekwondo classes. They're taking cooking classes. We're gonna try to do like some entrepreneurial stuff in there, and it's just been offered to the community. And it's not they come for a service and they do stuff. It's Wednesday night, and it's called The Mix, and it's exploding. And so I think that's what we were talking about yesterday, is like the plaza, have places where the community can come and not feel like they have to say yes to God.
Now,
because
what about your incubator going on over there?
Well, we're doing our incubator there, where we've done it with the church leadership, to say not necessarily it's for businesses, but it's the entrepreneurial mindset. And so we've done it with the church leadership, and we're doing it with the church. Now we're going to take it to the community and start to help out in the Hispanic community, help them with the mom and pops and their businesses, and not necessarily try to do tech stuff, but how can we make our community thrive in business. And so that's going to be an offering that we just give as part of our outreach.
Awesome. And I just invite any of the panelists to just pipe in if you want to jump off on anything anyone else is saying. So, but let's jump over here to Chris. Chris, do you have a microphone? Here we go. So Chris, you are super involved in the entrepreneurial community around here and in Kansas City, and just connected to a lot of folks. You're seeing a lot of things going on. What are you seeing happening in Kansas City?
What I see is people taking risks. I'll tell a story. I help facilitate a group here in Kansas City called Solomon's Porch, and it's a community of entrepreneurs or wantrepreneurs or people who are currently jobs trying
Wantrepreneurs?
Yeah, we have different terms for different people. So, I was a wantrepreneur, still am, but I think what people are being bit with is this desire to learn what it is to be a son before a father, and what I enjoy so much about life right now is watching people step out and see God give them the dreams of their heart and permission to jump off a cliff every day is kind of how I describe it when I love to encourage and inspire others. And so take big risks. You know, it's not big in his eyes, but it is for them in the moment. And so someone who's never done sales in his life, take a step out, and he's this top salesman or in the top leaderboard, the top 3 for one of the largest car dealerships in town for the entire year, month after month. And the Lord's blowing his mind and healing his heart of being an orphan or a slave and how he's living his life. And now he is getting the itch to do something bigger, and he's going to get connected with some really neat open doors for sales in Kansas City. And he's never thought of himself ever as a salesman, and the Lord's just blowing up his world. And it's not just about physical evidence of seeing the Lord come in. It's a healing of the heart, knowing that God is this giant, loving Father who's unconditional and wants to not do something simply for you as if we're silver spooned or gold spooned in essence, but it's partnering with us and us taking the hard steps out and learning something new, learning a lot new, and doing life differently than we've done it before. So I continue to see men and women here in Kansas City get shaken to the core. Usually requires some intense shaking, and at the same time they get hungry, and they walk out this incredible journey of healing where they see a new face of God as this Father who sees them as a son and daughter, so that the person comes and says, "Daddy, I want." And they want something. And it's this, Bob talked about earlier this morning about this thing of desire. And it is this cataclysmic formula that happens inside of someone's heart. And it's unstoppable. And they encounter the face of God in a way that they couldn't give credit to anything else, because incredible things are happening. And yet it required them to do something very uncomfortable, grow in new places, and they've been transformed. And it's an identity as a son. So what is a son? It's a restful approach to working hard. It is a way of continuously being in a vulnerable place and humble place, but yet doing outrageous things.
David, jump off on that and just talk about risk for a second.
Risk is great. I think you just have to get used to it.
Yeah.
Are you seeing people taking a lot of risk out there?
You have to.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think it's always relative, right? Someone's risk, the biggest thing for them is just to start. And it's the whole world to them. So we can't, I don't belittle the risk because of the scale. I just know we all have to get used to doing it a lot. And risk is faith, right?
And say the thing about failure again, because I forgot it already.
We just got to fail. Fail quick, fail small, but fail.
Yeah. What's interesting, I'm finding what the Lord's doing with these people that I get to observe is he's not encouraging them to be cautious. He's encouraging them to be reckless, but in a way that's submitted to him and in a way that deals with their heart.
Wow.
It's not a place of failure. They don't look at it that. It's a place of growth and learning. But, when people come to me and say, "Hey, Chris, I don't think you should do that," or "That sounds outlandish," or "Gosh, are you sure you should do that?" I'm like, actually, I've got a ridiculous green light to take as much risk as I have right now, and I'm actually afraid to do it,
Wow.
and I'm trying to keep myself up with him.
And this is where this innovation thing fits in too, because we don't just want to take dumb risks. We want to innovate properly and take right risks, you know. And I love what you said last night about not leaving your brain behind. You know, too many believers believe grace is enough.
Yeah.
You know, and and grace is great, a great foundation to build on.
Well, you had Matt Webb here, right, at TDA like a month ago, the guy who's doing the one-year road trip.
Yeah.
There are 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds that have phenomenal organizations. We're going to work with 2 of them. They're getting like these CNN Hero Prizes. They're getting Nickelodeon Prizes, awards, and they're 8, 12, 13, and they have startups, and they're doing it, and they're redefining what risk is, what wisdom is, you know. And so I think we you know, failure and all that's great, is because we get so inspired by these stories, and they're models to say, if they can do it, I think if an 8-year-old can really do it, Lord, lead us,
Maybe I can
teach us how to do this thing,
Yeah.
you know?
And I'm just closing this. One thing I continue to find as a recurring theme, as I'm trying to inspire myself and others around, is usually what people are afraid of the most they need to do, and what keeps them back from it. And so, like, if I may, I had a dream a couple years ago about a large transaction I'm working on right now, and if it doesn't go through, it's okay, and the Lord wasn't wrong about the dream, but you know, I wet my pants every time I think about what's taking place. And he I mean,
that's
it's
a beautiful picture.
Yeah, thank you. But what's crazy is like, I think what the Lord wants us to do is to continue taking outrageous risks, but that was a floor to him. He's like, okay, that's fine. We're going to get past that. Now I want you to go to this stage, and I want you to do that every month. And it's like this place of stretching this muscle of
awesome.
faith and risk.
So Chris, tell us, you're in touch with the entrepreneurial community in Kansas City. Is what's happening in the entrepreneurial community? Is Kansas City becoming an entrepreneurial hub? And what's happening here in our city?
Do you want the rest of us up here?
I'll be quick. Well, I mean, I continue to hear rumors, and I have people who are verifying it, of CEOs of high-level tech companies just buying homes and moving to Kansas City. They're investing in town. VC funds are sending research assistants coming here just looking. I mean, it's, you know, it's real. I mean, we're not Silicon Valley yet, but we're this growing potential Silicon Prairie that continues to be echoed in this community here. So the way we're praying is, Lord, you know, give us heavenly inspiration for patents and innovative, you know, disruptive technology for Kansas City. I mean, Cisco, they've invested in Kansas City as the largest smart city in the United States that's on the backs of the streetcar system. People are leaving other parts of the country to come here. It's not New York, it's not Chicago, it's not Silicon, but it is growing that way.
Paradise on earth.
And it's becoming a big deal.
All right. Okay, hand the microphone to Bob. and Matt, you know, yeah, I'd like Matt to jump in here and just tell us how you're seeing the God of Reformation, how you're seeing God moving in amongst your generation and this your business, these kind of things.
Well, we talk about risk, and it's everything right now. I think when we met, Bob and I met a couple months ago, and I told him that the Lord spoke to me and told me that fear has a name, it's shame. And the reality of that is, when we talk about risk, is that you have to understand like who we're playing against. That's the truth of the matter. And the place that where we play is we play in our minds, but the real place that we play is in our hearts. And so if I'm free in my heart to take risks, that means that I don't have fear pulling down in any aspect of my life. The second part of that is that anxiety, because it has a name, and it's there, and it's in your mind, and it's all around you at every second of every turn, and you have to say no to it. If anxiety's there, then what we're describing about this outpouring from the Lord right in this very single moment, if we tap into, we feel Jesus fully in every square inch of our heart, we will get downloads. We will get technology innovation. We will get fashion innovation, which is what I do. we will be bringing entrepreneurial services, goods and services, and going back to the original way, from my perspective, that we were originally designed to walk out this life with, in a heart posture that's aligned with the righteousness of being a man that can walk and be seated literally not only in heavenly places with our spirit, but we can have the original design of what we're intended, and that's to walk with God. And I think to say that, I'm a guy in the fashion industry. I'm a contradiction in itself. I live in Kansas City. Talk about risk. I'm a big fish I'm the only fish in the pond, you know? I say that. Last year I was named GQ's Best New Menswear Designer of the Year, and I say that because of this. What does he say throughout Hebrews? What does Paul talk about? He takes someone, I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. He takes someone who is no one, and he puts his glory on display, and he puts them at the front page when you pick up your GQ, and there's my face. It's not for my skill set, but it's the risk in my heart that I was able to take in following my King who has plans for my life. Jeremiah 29:11. Those plans are for all of us. Therefore, whether you know him or not, the reality is we're all his kids. Some of us just haven't been awakened yet. And it's our spirit man right now that he's awakening. If you awaken your spirit man right now, you will hear, you will see, you will get innovation, you will get passion, and you will find yourself in a life that is very different from the day before. So this is my life that I walk out every day. And I walk out in the security of my dad. My dad's my backer. And because he's my backer, I am free to risk, first of all, my heart. And that's where movements start. It starts in the person's single heart. And then you know what it does? It goes to the next person you're close with, which is, for me, my wife and my kids. And that's my kids. It goes to this group of people that God has brought into our life right now. And from then, it's going to go out. It's already happening in L.A. We have amazing things happening in LA and New York, and I'll slow down on this one, but it's the God of all life. The God of Reformation is kicking into the God of all life. We're going to see him everywhere, period. He's not meant to be in a Sunday school class in an hour and a half on a Sunday. That's putting him in a box. We're supposed to see him every hour of every day, and that's what I believe he's pouring out right now. If we plug in and tap into this, our eyes are going to light up, and we're going to see a world that we didn't see the day before.
Talk about your little book there. Show us your little book.
I don't leave home without it. It's
Why
my
not?
moleskin.
Why not? What is it?
I process. I'm a visual guy. I'm a designer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm all sorts of things of sorts. Given, I just am not afraid to take risks. But I write in here constantly. I process life with him. Daily, maybe hourly at sorts of times, and man, I love the Son of God. So
So you're listening for the little thing, and you're jotting notes down.
Well, we have a family at all times. We're never alone. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is with us all the time. I'm never alone. I travel all over the place, and I'm never alone. It's so exciting, right, to travel with your family at all times. So he speaks to me.
Amen. So
they speak to me.
Bob, the thing, I'm trying to remember what you said about fear yesterday. Do you remember? You probably can't remember either.
No, it was so good.
It was so good. Do you remember what he said about fear?
Where fear is, love ends.
That's right. It's fear. Awesome. Fear is believing that his love ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, all fear is believing his love is ended. So, I can add something real quick. The steps of a reformer, I think, just for this group, is, and I don't have it with me, but what I believe we're speaking to is we've been invited to this exposure, first step, the God of all of life. And so when I was a youth pastor, and I started having dreams about he was the God, not only in the corner of the church, but in all of life, then I stepped out to be exposed. And so I went into the political arena, helped a man who was running for Senate, educational arena, taught at a university, social arena, was on the national board for the YMCA. And the second step in this exposure was finding your field. Because I could go into that place and you either had the ephod light up red or green. You just knew it didn't fit you. So when I got into business, I found that was my field. You know, my heart came alive in that, and a couple others. So I believe as we step out, there's an exposure step. Then you find your field. That's the second step. And then I believe you find your family or your marvelous comrades. So essential to have that acceleration by association. What we had was we bought the building the first prayer room was in. And so on the outside of it, we rented the offices to ones that you guys would probably know, but there were different business owners. And we'd meet at lunchtime, like with the Kip Unruh or Mike Jones or with Tom Cannon. And they all had expertise. They were our family. So one was in accounting, one was in, sales. And so we were able to find a family and just every day walk in there and share our joys and our needs and be able to build together. And then after that, the next step was really for us to develop our skill base. Well, we're taught entrepreneurial training at UMKC. They had 23 arms to a small business. That's the way they broke it down. You had vision, values, vehicles, building principles, and you had your different areas of responsibility. So we had a choice, or I had a choice at that point, starting a cleaning business. 96% of them fail. It's have mop will travel. There's a lot of people that don't know how to run an organization. Not saying that I did, but I got the skill base around me, and I was committed, and we all are. This is so important. As you step out to be a reformer, there is a headwind. That you're ready to develop the skill base necessary or get the people around you to be able to have success in your area. So just at being 57 and watching young people that come up with an idea, Bob and I sat in on a group by state investment group. Many young people would come with their ideas, but there was a responsibility to really give yourself to your craft and really develop it out. And you had to have passion. And it says, that lovers at work, workers or dutiful people. I think hopers. They keep hoping, they keep building. So then the last thing I just want to say about being a reformer that I think is really, really key for everybody, that it's all based on your inheritance, as Chris was saying. I knew not to go out into the industry to compete. I never was going to sell and compete. I'd sit with these. We grew to about 120 janitors in about 18 months. Which made us about the second or third biggest one in the city. There's just not that many that are that big. They're citywide. But the way we grew was to ask the Lord for our inheritance. We would sit with these guys and they'd steal each other's contracts, and they'd just have fun. I got that one from you, and it was like every 90 days our workforce would turn over. And so that's not heaven. That's the opposite. You wake up every night with your hair on fire. How am I going to fill these buildings tonight? So just submit this to you. Find your inheritance. When I knew a building like this Butler building, it's an 80,000 square foot building downtown, I knew it was our inheritance, that we were to clean that. And I can tell you through the process we went through to assure us that that was our inheritance. And then when we would go in, every day was $9,000 a month building. I had about 20 people that were cleaning it, and just part-time, so it made money. But it was our inheritance. I wasn't competing against anyone. I knew it was our building. And I knew we could create value and meaning for that. And we had, about 12 movie theaters. We had 9 medical buildings. Those were all ours. So there was this inheritance, and there was an inheritance with employees. I'd pray and I'd say, are they part of the family? Are they long-term keepers? So that we didn't have every 90 days, 100% turnover. And even just in closing, we lost a building. Like Butler one time, I walked in, Bob Jones had said, hey, you always pray. You say, Lord, what face do you want to represent in this place? Or one thing Bob had trained us about is golden senses. And so he'd say, smell when you go into a building. So I would. And it smelled like roses. And that meant favor. That meant it was sweet to us and sweet to them. Well, this one time I walk into that building that's our inheritance, and I smell cigarette smoke. And that meant bitterness. And they don't smoke cigarettes in that building. And I went up, and he was just different. The foreman that was over our area, or the vice president. So we got notice. within a week that we were out. He found somebody cheaper. So I just kept going to that building, and there were 2 or 3 of them like that, where I just pray until again it started to smell sweet, which was 3 years later. I knew it was our inheritance. I didn't bug him. I didn't whine, but I came back and I said, "Is it time?" And he said, "It's time." Hired us back. So I believe there's 7 steps for a reformer. I covered 5 or 6 of them. And that's all I have to say. And then I'm done for today and tomorrow.